welcome members, officers, honorary aldermen and any members of the public viewing at home to this evening's council meeting. Please be seated. There is no fire drill planned for this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please make your way from the chamber using either the fire escape to my right or the stairwell that leads off in front of the lobby outside the chamber. Item 1. Miss Willis, may I please have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've received apologies from Councillor Cliff Betton, Councillor Mary Glowett, Councillor Julie Hyde and Councillor Sashi Marvagnam and Councillor Mark Gordon as well.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2, I propose that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 25th of October 2023 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to second the motion.
Thank you. Is that agreed, members? Item agenda 3, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare in relation to the matters which are to be considered at this meeting? Sorry? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to declare a non-pecuniary interest in agenda item 8A. I sit on the Surrey Police and Crime panel representing this council, and it has limited oversight of the Police and Crime Commissioner, which is the subject of that agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Item 4. I'm advised there are no questions have been received from members of the public under Council Procedure Rule 10. Item 5. My announcements. We have just been made of some sad news. So firstly, on behalf of the Mayor and the Council, I would like to offer our deepest sympathies to Alderman Alan Whittart and his family at the sad loss of his son-in-law. Our thoughts are with him and Alan and everyone of the family at this very sad time. Thank you. Old age setting in. I would like to say congratulations to Age Concerned Surrey Heath on behalf of the borough for being awarded the King's Award for Voluntary Service. They have been helping people for over 70 years, and that's a wonderful achievement to receive, not only on behalf of Age Concern, but for the borough. Collingwood School held their Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and I had the privilege of presenting these awards to these young people. This award is achieved by many months and sometimes years of hard work. They are often outside their comfort zone. So congratulations to not only the young people of Collingwood, but also Tomlinscote and Gordon School. Thanks also to their parents for taking them around, their teachers and the volunteers, those volunteers popping up again, who have supported these young people to achieve these rewards, which will lead them in good stead through their life. To the young man at the Philip Southcote School for his achievements, well done, Sander. There are so many wonderful charities in the borough run by volunteers, and as Mayor, I've been invited to parties to celebrate 10 years. One of those was the Bagshot Library, which was saved by Councillor White. 25th and 49th, which was Camberley Care. And Camberley Care's pledge for their 50th year is to get 50 new volunteers. They've so far got 2, so if anybody wants to volunteer, Camberley Care is looking. I went to Camberley's Best Kept Secret, the club which has run for 118 years, a club that didn't allow ladies into the hallowed premises until 2008. I've met the First Lady member, but I didn't meet any founder members. I have attended many civic services and during the summer, and now is the season for the Civic Carol service, an ideal opportunity to promote our borough, to network and to reach out to as many people as possible, and for each mayor to raise money for their particular charity, a tradition that has taken place for many years. So it is with regret that I, the mayor, have to announce that the planned civic service to be held on the 20th of January 2024 will not take place. I apologise to the mayors whose civic services I have attended for not being able to reciprocate, and I'm also sorry that I am unable to use this planned event to support my chosen charity, Sight for Surrey. I also apologise to my official chaplain and thank him for his support in the preparations, and I'm so sorry that it cannot go forward. There will be no Christmas cards going out this year from the Mayor's office, but I will be sending my fellow mayors Christmas cards, which I will purchase and send myself. Thank you. Item 6, I'd like to invite the leader, Councillor Sean MacDonald, to make his announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I would like to start tonight by thanking all those who took part and helped organise the Council's civic arrangements for Remembrance Sunday last month. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes and on the day to make these events go smoothly, and all the efforts of all the Council staff involved are really appreciated. Thank you. Despite the showers, the main event, overseen by our own Deputy Mayor Sadbi Kang, was very well attended, and it was great to be accompanied this year by the Royal Military Academy Marching Band, as well as to be able to increase the representation of faiths and communities participating with the wreath laying and associated service. With so much conflict taking place in the world today, our event and the other remembrance events taking place across the borough and across the country offered an important time to reflect on the sacrifice of all those who've defended our freedoms and protected our way of life. For myself, in that moment of stillness, I very much had in mind my relative Patrick Byrne, the horrors of Gallipoli, and a newlywed left willowed with a young Ben back in Dublin. We will remember them. Moving on to council motions. Councillors, I wanted to update you on the progress made on 2 motions that were agreed at the previous full council meeting in October, relating to Thames Water and Frimley Park Hospital. Firstly, the Frimley Park Hospital motion. You will remember is related to the future location of the hospital, which, as you know, works very closely with the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst. Following the council meeting, I wrote to the chair of the Hospital Trust, and then I and our chief executive met with the chair and chief executive of the hospital about their plans and the proactive assistance we could give them. Following that meeting, I'm pleased that they have now launched a public engagement exercise to determine the criteria they will use for selecting a new site, which I would encourage all members and members of the public to engage with. I also wrote to our MP asking for his support, and he wrote back last week confirming that he would continue to assist our efforts to keep the hospital in our borough and accessible to local residents. Secondly, the motion related to the Camberley stink caused by Thames Water throughout the summer. First of all, I'd like to confirm that, as agreed, I wrote to both Thames Water and the Secretary of State for the Environment. I'd also like to thank Councillor Lee, the rest of the External Partnerships Committee and other members for their excellent, thorough scrutiny of the Thames Water representatives at their meeting earlier this month, building on the local campaign of Councillors Finan Cook, Rowlands and Quinn, coordinated by the Environment Portfolio Holder, Councillor Rise. I hope that Thames Water will come forward in the next few weeks with an offer of financial compensation, which we can invest in a local community project focused on the children that lost a summer in the area that was most affected, potential land for which I have challenged the officer team to look into. Councillors, considering the recent executive meeting, I'm pleased to confirm that we have moved forward with the establishment of a new youth council following the motion proposed by Councillor Quinn and agreed at the full council back in July. A big thank you to portfolio holder Councillor Lisa Finan-Cook, Miss France and other officers for all their hard work in finding a solution to securing funding and resource through to the end of 2024. We also agreed to allocate the balance of our £1 million UK Shared Prosperity Fund for next year. Our plans include a comprehensive bin replacement programme on council land, improvement of 3 of our parks, and improvements to public spaces in Camberley Town Centre. In addition, the Executive is recommending to this evening's full council meeting an updated council tax support scheme, one element of which better aligns with the commitments we have made in the Armed Forces Covenant, which you all supported. Looking forward to the January Executive, I'm hoping that we will be able to bring a detailed report on the local listing of heritage sites in the borough, including buildings and spaces of note, that help give our town, villages and neighbourhoods and visitors their unique identities. I was stunned to see how many gems are tucked away across the borough and encourage members and the public to take a look at the most significant and interesting ones. We are also intending to bring forward a report to confirm the level of discretionary grant funding we will be able to afford and allocate in 2024-25 to key voluntary sector organisations, thereby securing support to those most in need of help in the borough during the cost of living crisis. We will also be bringing forward our new equity strategy, which reflects the Council's commitment to tackling discrimination and working towards a fairer society where everyone is able to access the opportunities and life chances on offer on the same basis, independent of their starting point. Councillors, your council team have been busy upskilling themselves with training since last council. So congratulations to all on their achievements, which include professional registration as a chartered environmental health practitioner, 2 professional certificates for the inspection of children's playgrounds, and a certificate in leadership communication. A sincere thank you on behalf of us all for the service of those who gained 10 years of long service, very dedicated members of staff, the family support team leader, our Camberley Theatre box office advisor, and one of our democratic services team. Lastly, moving on to the festive season, and I must apologise to council, but there was a glitch between myself and my source of information, so I'm lacking two items in detail. I'll try and do them from memory. One of them is that many council staff and many volunteers have assisted in the preparation of food parcels in collaboration with Bessem. So thank you very much to all those involved, and obviously we hope that will have an impact, a positive impact to those that receive the parcels. And the second item I'll have to refer back to you in due course over the email. Finally, I would like to thank both members and officers for the many things you have done and achieved for Surrey Heath residents during 2023, particularly since the start of this new council in May this year. Often it's the small things that matter most to those needing our help, being accessible, actively listening, and positively advocating on individual residents' behalf to get small problems resolved, whilst working together in committees and working groups to plan a better future for the borough overall. I look forward to seeing what we can achieve together for our residents and businesses of Surrey Heath in 2024. Councillors, noting the recent sad departure of Benjamin Zephaniah, proud resident of Handsworth, adjacent to where I lived for many years in Birmingham, whose lifetime of work highlighted challenges faced at home and abroad, I wanted to share some of his thoughts that resonate right now. The planet is for everyone. Borders are for no one. It's all about freedom. and perhaps most importantly, increase the peace. On that note, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish everyone here a peaceful Christmas and a healthy New Year. Slanjavor, Slanjavor. Thank you, Mayor. That ends Leader's announcements.
Thank you, Leader. Moving to item 7, Executive Committees and Other Bodies. Executive Minutes and Recommendations. Can I have a proposer for the Executive Minutes and Recommendations at minute 5AE?
I propose.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to second.
Thank you. Are you happy to receive these minutes and agree the recommendation? Planning Applications Committee. Can I have a proposer for the Planning Application Committee minutes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the absence of the chair of the committee, I'm happy to propose those minutes, and I hope that one of the fellow councillors that sit will second them.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Oh, sorry. I'm saying I'm happy to second those minutes.
Councillor Garrett, thank you. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes? Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee. I have been advised that the minutes of this committee last meeting are still being drafted and will be presented at the next meeting. Employment Committee. Can I have a proposer for the Employment Committee minutes and the recommendation at minute 16/EC?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I am happy to so propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcraft. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Cook. Members, are you happy to receive these minutes and the recommendation? External Partnership Select Committee. I have been advised that the minutes of the committee last meeting are still being drafted and will be presented at the next meeting. Joint Staff and Consultative Group. Can I have a proposer for the notes of the Joint Staff Consultative Group? Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to propose those notes. Sorry.
Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Finn and Cook. Members, are you happy to receive these notes? Thank you. Item 8. Members, you will see that 2 motions have been received for this evening's meeting. I will take them in order and they are included in the agenda. Motion 1. I would like to ask Councillor Kevin Thompson to move his motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to propose this motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Do you have a seconder?
I'm happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rakes. Do you wish to speak on this motion?
Yes.
He has to speak now, doesn't he? Thank you. Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Police and crime commissioners were first introduced in 2011, modelled loosely on the US system, with the goal of holding the police to account and ultimately helping to keep us all safe. Now, we're very fortunate here in Surrey, in that we have one of the lowest crime rates in the country. Everything, however, is relative. And whilst at first glance the picture looks rosy, when we do some trend analysis, we see a pattern of crimes on the increase, whilst the percentage of these crimes being solved goes down. In a recent report by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, which is kind of like the police's equivalent of Ofsted, Surrey Police only scored good in 2 out of 9 metrics, with the other 7 being adequate, requires improvement, or inadequate. The opening remarks in His Majesty's HM Inspector summary were, and I quote, "I have concerns about the performance of Surrey Police in keeping people safe, reducing crime and providing victims with an effective service. In particular, I have serious concerns about how the force is responding to the public. Now, I don't believe that this is a reflection of the hard-working men and women on the front line of our police service, and it's more a symptom of chronic underinvestment and resourcing in the police service by a succession of Tory Home Secretaries over the past 13 years. In the context of these strained public finances, can we really justify the eye-watering costs that the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner incurs? Particularly as we don't seem to be seeing any service improvement as a result. Over £1.5 million this year, with a full staff of almost 20, including 7 in senior positions such as a deputy PCC, a chief executive, a head of policy and a head of communications. Instead, we should strip out this bloated layer of unnecessary bureaucracy and reinvest the bulk of this money back into frontline policing. As detailed in the motion put before you this evening, this could amount to up to 60 more PCSOs on Surrey streets. Value for money, however, is just one of the many problems with the PCC model. There is also the issue that one of the few real powers that the PCC holds is the ability to unilaterally hire and fire chief constables. At best, there's been suggestions that this fear of removal from office is preventing potential suitors from applying for the role. At worst, there's a risk of the PCC interfering in operational police matters, which calls into question the ability of the Chief Constable to perform their duties independently. And whilst one of the PCC's main functions is to hold the serving men and women of our police force to account, there is another concern. Who is effectively holding them to, in what is a highly politicised role, to account? To give a hypothetical example, if a PCC were to use their platform to publicly express personal political views that marginalised, or worse, demonised, certain sections of our society, how could we then expect them to hold the police to account to treat these marginalised sections of society even-handedly? Worse still, there could be a perception with the public that those views are representative or more widely held views within the police force itself. Whilst the actual powers of the PCC are limited, their opportunity to do harm is not. All of this adds up to a political experiment that has unfortunately failed, and that is why I'm calling upon the leader of this council to write to the Home Secretary expressing this council's view that the office of the PCC is scrapped and a more suitable model for police governance is found. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Bates, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm seconding this motion for the following reasons. First, as Councillor Thompson has pointed out, the total workforce for the PCC was 20.27 full-time equivalents in March of this year. The size of the staff is inevitably one of the key reasons for the high budget of the PCC. And while policing has to be funded, and properly, I'm sure that I don't need to remind members that while SHBC receives just 11% of every pound of council tax, the police, including the office of the PCC, receives 14%. The PCC money would be better spent on more PCSOs or other operational requirements of the police. My second reason to support the motion is that I believe it would be better for the police to be held to account by police boards representing the councils in the areas that the police are responsible for. That would better reflect local democratic feeling rather than concentrating power in a single pair of hands. My third reason is that I've been disappointed by the government's decision to change the voting method for PCCs to first past the post. We all know that first past the post elections suit the main two parties, but they lead to undemocratic results that mean that many voters are simply not represented. If first past the post had been used for the first PCC election in Surrey in 2012, the PCC could have won with just 34,000 votes, which is about 5% of the electorate in Surrey, not really a representative sample. That's why I urge members to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. I would like to ask members to discuss the motion and make any comments. Anybody wish to make any comments? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. Police in this country are being let down, and the dedicated, hard-working, brave officers and staff of Surrey Police are being let down more than most. Surrey's Police and Crime Commissioner has politicised their sacrifices and used their courageous service to promote a party political agenda. Police officers and staff are selected on merit and required to be politically neutral. Unfortunately, public money, which could have provided more PCSOs, has been spent on managing the Commissioner's public image and appointing an unqualified Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. The DPCC was not appointed on merit, of course. Appointed at the age of 26 on a £55,000 salary, her qualifications were a degree in politics and a short time working as a Tory party special advisor, or SPAD. The previous PCC did not appoint a deputy. I understand that the current PCC has been keeping her career options open by applying for selection as the Tory party parliamentary candidate in some nearby constituencies. She has been unsuccessful so far, which tells its own story. She has used the prominence of the PCC position has given her to promote right-wing culture war talking points. She has called for discrimination against vulnerable minorities and therefore undermined public trust in Surrey Police. Surrey Police has become a finishing school for Tory party SPADs. They are a waste of public money and damage the morale of the superb police officers and staff on whom we all rely to protect us. The system of police and crime commissioners is letting down the police and putting the public at risk. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Cope?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to ignore this rather disgraceful remark Councillor Wilson just made about 229 and focus on what the motion actually says. I'm aware that this is a concerted effort. Surrey Liberal Democrats, there's a very similar motion, similarly worded motion going to Spelthorne Council tomorrow, and we're expecting more around the county. I'm not convinced that it's the best use of this council's time to basically have a Lib Dem electioneering motion debated here. I'd rather be discussing things that actually matter to Surrey Heath residents. But as we are here, I want to point out a few flaws in the motion as it is stated. Firstly, subsection 2 of the motion is very selective statistics. They've picked August 2023 for reasons that are unknown. If you look at the statistics for November 2023, there have been 81 more burglary offences having a solved outcome in Surrey than in the previous year, and 125 fewer offences reported in that time. In terms of subsection 4, there's an implication that having an elected police and crime commissioner has led to an increase in tax precepts and a bloated budget. If you look at the evidence again, pre-2012, precepts were rising much faster. In 2004, there was a 40% increase in Surrey and a 28% increase on average nationally. That's much higher than any police and crime commissioner I'm aware of has requested, and therefore the evidence suggests that having an accountable police and crime commissioner in the public view actually results in lower taxation, not higher taxation. If we look at subsections 6 and 7, there is obviously, you're putting forward a police boards model to replace the PCC, but these won't be free. And it's a slightly populist argument, I would say, to say, let's take all of the money out of the back room and put it on the front line. It doesn't work like that. It's a false economy. There are a number of statutory functions that the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner needs to provide, including commissioning victim services, which I'm sure no one in this council would like to see cut. It is just a false narrative to say that you can take money from the back room, put it at the front, and there won't be any impact. I think subsections 7 and 8 get to the crux of why this motion's coming forward here and in other councils across Surrey. There have been, by my count, over 100 PCC elections across the country since 2012, and guess what? The Liberal Democrats haven't won any of them. So I suspect that maybe they've thought, well, we're struggling a bit to win these, to be honest, so let's get rid of them. Let us not forget that the Liberal Democrats firmly supported the introduction of PCCs in 2012 as part of the coalition government. even if they might like to try and forget that time. But finally, I just want to make the point that I stood for election earlier this year because I wanted to stand up for what residents in our community want from their council. And today we find ourselves at another full council with an agenda where the majority group has put forward nothing for discussion on issues that actually matter to residents. All we get from them is a political template motion issued by their head office. I've knocked on countless doors, as I'm sure many of you have, across Surrey Heath. And do you know what? No one said to me, do you know what the thing that's keeping me up at night? My number one priority, it's abolishing the Police and Crime Commissioner. This is an irrelevant motion. I hope that at future meetings we might actually get to discuss the things that the council is doing to try and improve people's lives in Surrey Heath. But under the current leadership, that seems very unlikely. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I don't think this motion is about Lib Dem electioneering, as Labour will be supporting this too this evening, and the previous speaker seemed to forget that the Labour Party existed. So I'm very clear that party politics shouldn't have a role in policing. I think that's just simple common sense, and I think this motion raises genuine concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think as brickbats are being handed out evenly, I'd like to, first of all, raise the brickbats in relation to the councillor for our area, who has disappeared as a political force. And we've made countless efforts to talk about speeding in Edward Avenue, for instance, which has long been a problem, and not had a single reply. So this council is operating with part of a void as far as democratic accountability is concerned. So I raise a question with him. Now, talking about the police commissioner, despairing of the Conservative route, I tried the other alternative to write to police commissioner, and that was probably 2 months ago, and didn't receive any sort of reply whatsoever. So as my colleague was saying, there's brickbats for both, but on balance, I think we've always felt that it's rather a waste of money, and it's not really proved itself since its incarnation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully support this motion. I find it extremely concerning that this role exists, adding a political dimension to policing in our county and indeed across the country. The current Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey has not only taken it upon herself to waste thousands of pounds on a deputy, various support staff, she's also seriously misused her platform to campaign excessively against the trans community. I have many friends who have been severely impacted by the campaign of hate embarked upon by the PCC, which has seen her speak at transphobic conferences held by the LGB Alliance, a known hate group. She has also allowed herself to be photographed in a J.K. Rowling mask, which, as I'm sure many of you will know, is a nod to the author's openly and vocal transphobic stance. PCC also demanded that the force leave the Stonewall Diversity and Inclusion Scheme. However, the force refused on the basis that inclusion and diversity are extremely important in policing. Does this not demonstrate exactly how ineffective the role really is? To me, the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner simply exists to push political agendas within the police force, which is hugely concerning, inappropriate and damaging to both the force and the public, as well as wasting much-needed public funds which could be funding much-needed police officers and PCSOs. My opinion is that this is expensive political position has no place within British policing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to talk on this. I probably would have been minded to support the motion because I've never been particularly supportive of the role of the Police and Crime Commissioner. However, what I find very disappointing is that there have been accusations made this evening about somebody who is not here to defend herself, and also without clear evidence that's being presented to this chamber. So very unusually for me, I will abstain for a vote on this, but I would like to remind councillors that if they're going to make very direct and very pointed accusations, it would be helpful for them to share papers that support those accusations in advance, rather than what I fear is sometimes a personal opinion or an interpretation of an event. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wasn't going to speak, and I just want to respond to Councillor Wheeler's comments. There is vast evidence about the Police and Crime Commissioner's transphobic beliefs. She herself the Police and Crime Panel found that she breached the code of conduct of the Police and Crime Commissioner in tweets that she's made. I also just want to respond to Councillor Coates' point about the Liberal Democrats and Coalition. Yes, we did support the introduction of the Police and Crime Commissioners. And as members of the Conservative Party know, political positions can quite quickly change, especially for them. However, over the period since its introduction, I would say it has proved to have failed as an experiment. A new system of police governance is required. The Police and Crime Commissioner in Surrey, in my opinion, is unknown in Surrey Heath. I appreciate that Councillor Coate may know her personally, but she is rarely here. And during the last term, repeated requests were made to her office to come to external partnerships, which I was once chair of, and she repeatedly refused to come, which is a shame. There wasn't much democratic accountability there. And I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a lot of political toing and froing on this matter this evening, which I'm not going to add to. And it is true that the Liberal Democrats supported the concept in 2012, but I would ask members to perhaps ask themselves a question, which is, over the intervening years, what added value has this role given to policing, particularly in Surrey and Surrey Heath? And I think the answer, inevitably, is not very much. We also have a system in this country which relies on chief constables, and in my view, and I suspect in the view of many other people, it's far better to allow the chief constables of the police forces in this country to do their job, rather than being influenced by quasi-political roles, which may or may not add something to the quality of policing in each county. So, for this reason, I shall certainly be supporting the motion, and I hope everybody else will too. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a question to Johnny Cope, Councillor Cope, so I suspect he'll want the right to respond as well. Obviously, you were at the External Partnerships meeting on the 28th of November, and you are part of the committee that unanimously agreed the work programme. And I think Lisa Townsend is listed under the Surrey Police Crime and Disorder meeting, a section. Could you confirm if your friend will be attending that meeting? It's obviously an opportunity for her to respond if she would so like to.
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah, I'll just come back just briefly to sum up to say this certainly isn't anything to do with electioneering. We have no desire to win or stand a candidate. As far as I'm concerned, win the next Police and Crime Commissioner election. We don't think they provide good value for money. I think if you were to ask those on the doorstep whether or not where their council tax is spent and the quality of the public services that they receive, if that's high on their list of priorities, they probably would be quite close to the top. I'd just like to urge everybody in this chamber to think about whether or not the Police and Crime Commissioner as a role moving away from the personalities involved as a role is a good use of public money, whether we think it's actually delivering for the people of Surrey, improving their the effectiveness of the police service that they pay for. And I urge everyone to vote with this motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Thank you. I would like now to move a vote on the proposal. I will now ask for a show of hands unless anyone indicates otherwise. Could I have a show of hands, please, on whether you accept this motion? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? The motion is carried. Thank you. Do you want to vote? No, members have declared the vote is carried. Oh, yeah, you just said that. Yeah. I didn't want to give a number. Sorry. Right, motion 2. I would like to ask Councillor Josh Thorne to move his motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to propose this motion, and I reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Have you a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second this motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. Councillor Thorne, would you like to speak on your motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some may think that this is a harmless tradition, a way of rewarding children for their skills or luck, or a way of bringing joy and excitement to families. But the reality is very different. Giving away animals as prizes is cruel, irresponsible, and dangerous. It causes suffering and harm to the animals, who are often treated as disposable objects, and it exposes families to potential health risks, financial burdens, and emotional distress. First of all, giving away animals as prizes is cruel to the animals themselves. Animals are not toys or commodities. They're living beings who have feelings, needs, and rights. They deserve respect, care, and protection, but when they're given away as prizes, they're often subject to neglect, abuse, and abandonment. They're often kept in unsuitable conditions such as plastic bags, cardboard boxes, or cages, without proper food, water, shelter, or veterinary care. They're separated from their mothers, siblings, and natural habitats, and they are deprived of their natural behaviours such as swimming or flying. Many of these animals die before they even reach their new home due to shock, starvation, dehydration, and injury. Those who survive may face a short and miserable life, as they are often discarded, released, or dumped when their owners lose interest, cannot afford, or cannot cope with them. According to the RSPCA, they receive thousands of calls every year relating to animals being given away as prizes, particularly goldfish, who are often prized off at fairgrounds across England and Wales. Many of these animals end up in their rescue centres, or worse, in rubbish bins, the toilet, the local pond, and even where they can cause environmental damage or spread disease to natural wildlife. Secondly, giving away animals as prizes is irresponsible to the families who receive them. Most families who receive animals as prizes are not prepared or willing to take care of them. They may not have the knowledge, the space, the time, or the money to provide for their needs, and they may not have the appropriate equipment, such as tanks or cages, and they might not have access to veterinary care or vaccinations or treatment. Taking care of an animal is a serious and long-term commitment. It requires planning, research, and responsibility. It involves costs, risks, and obligations. It's not something that should be imposed or forced upon anyone. Lastly, giving away animals as prizes is dangerous to the public interest. It encourages irresponsible pet ownership, which can have negative consequences for society and the environment. It contributes to the overpopulation of unwanted animals, which can lead to animal suffering, euthanasia, or abandonment. It increases the risk of animal cruelty, neglect, or abuse, which can have psychological and social impacts on the perpetrators and the witnesses. And it promotes a culture of consumerism, materialism and disposability, which can undermine the values of respect, compassion and responsibility. Members may be interested to know that giving away animals as prizes is also illegal in some circumstances. Under the Animal Welfare Act of 2006, it is an offence to give away an animal to anyone under the age of 16 unless accompanied by an adult. This is to prevent children from receiving animals without the consent or supervision of their parents or guardians. However, this law is not enough to protect the animals or the families. In Scotland, it is an offence in almost all circumstances to give an animal away, regardless of your age. This is to prevent anyone from receiving animals without proper preparation or intention. This is the kind of law that we need in England and Wales, and this is the kind of policy that I'm asking that we adopt and enforce on Surrey Heath Borough Council owned land. Since 2021, almost 80 local authorities across England and Wales have officially banned pets as prizes on their land. They have recognised the cruelty, irresponsibility and the danger of this practice, and they have taken action to stop it. This motion asks our council to join them and to show our commitment to animal welfare, public health and social justice. This evening, let's help end this outdated and cruel practice and to make our community a better place for animals and people. Let's officially say no to animals as prizes and yes to animals as friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorne. Councillor Cope, would you like to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to speak very briefly on why I'd like to second this motion. Obviously, my good friend, Councillor Thorne, has already effectively set out why the giving of live animals as prizes is a practice that we as a society need to end. I agree wholeheartedly with the case he's put forward, but I do want to talk briefly about why I think it's right for us here in Surrey Heath to add our name to the increasing number of councils who have passed motions similar to this one and banned this practice on council-owned land. In Surrey Heath, we are animal lovers. I'm sure many of us in this chamber have pets who are special to us and who we would hate to think of going through some of the harm and distress that Councillor Thorne has set out in his initial remarks. Just at the weekend, I was at a Christmas light switch on where Brian May spoke about the great efforts going on to make Surrey Heath a hedgehog-friendly borough. I'm hoping that by showing and supporting this motion, we can make a small step towards being a borough that champions the rights of all animals. The issue of prohibiting live animals as prizes was actually something that was put on my radar by residents in St Paul's Ward, who wrote to me calling on me to work to ban this practice in Surrey Heath. This is something that our residents want us to do and something which I think we should deliver on. This type of motion has been passed by council of all colours and parties up and down the country, and I therefore hope it's something that can be supported on all sides of this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. I'd like to invite members to discuss the motion and make any comments. Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would first like to thank Councillor Thorne for bringing this motion to Council and for also engaging with me on the amendment that I'm going to move, which I'm very happy to propose. I find the practice of giving live animals as presents, as prizes, an abhorrent, cruel and inhumane practice, and it deserves to be banned. Too often, pets as prizes results in live animals subjected to cruel conditions as they are stored, such as goldfish kept in plastic bags of water that cannot be properly maintained. Those fish usually do not survive. That should never happen. In my amendment, as you can see, there is some added text, and I just want to go through that as well. But before that, I just want to note that Surrey Heath has had a long practice of banning the giving of live animals as prizes, a requirement that was implemented in 2000 by the then Leisure Committee of this council. In 2018, that requirement was then expanded to include goldfish. This requirement is part of the terms and conditions for hiring any Surrey Heath Borough Council owned land. While this requirement is in place, it has not been a policy of this council, as many would understand. The amendment that I am proposing this evening seeks to deliver on the intention of Councillor Thorne's motion and codify this council's existing requirement into a policy that's clear for all to see. Over the past few months, I have been working with officers to expand the existing requirement to include the performance and an exhibition of wild animals on Surrey Heath Borough Council owned land to be banned. This has been guided by the Wild Animals and Circuses Act 2019, which provides a clear list of animals that would be banned from performance and exhibition. The definition of a wild animal is any species not commonly domesticated in Great Britain, such as big cats, camels, elephants, reindeer and zebras. It does not include commonly domesticated animals such as dogs, cats, rabbits, etc. The amendment that I'm proposing will ensure that the also cruel and inhumane practice of using exotic and wild animals in performances or exhibition will also now be banned on Surrey Heath Borough Council-owned land. I hope all members will join me in supporting this amendment, which has been provided, and I will just talk you through the changes. The change to small Roman numeral 4, so removes the words "and move to," and it includes the words "the formalisation of the requirement to." In Roman numeral V small a, adds the words "formalise the outright ban of giving the live animals as prizes and owned land," and also adds a new clause B, expand the ban to include the exhibition or performance of wild animals as defined by the Wild Animals and Circuses Act on Surrey Heath Borough Council-owned land. I hope all members will join me in supporting this amendment and then supporting the amended motion and ensure that our council's policy in protecting and delivering animal welfare is clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rise. Members, you have got that amendment, or should have, on your desk in front of you. And Councillor Rise, do you have a seconder for your amendment?
I would like to second the amendment, please, Mayor, and I would like to speak on the amendment.
Councillor Thorne, do you accept this amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do. Thank you.
So, and a vote on it, unless anybody wants to speak. If I could just hold you there for a moment, Councillor Ashbury. This has now become the substantive motion. Is there anybody would like to speak on it? Councillor Ashbury.
Hi. Similar to Councillor Rise, I'd like to thank Councillor Thorne for bringing this motion forward. Clearly, as has been expressed by the previous speakers, the practice of giving away live creatures and the animal welfare issues this causes belongs in the past and has no place in today's society. I feel that the amendment proposed by Councillor Rise takes us the step further to consider the welfare of other animals, particularly those used for performing and exhibiting. So I think we would be a leading authority in protecting those animals as well as the giving away of pets for prizes. So I urge everyone to support the now amended motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, I'm going to support this. I think it's a very good idea. My only question is, if the Chamber agrees this tonight, when does this become effective? Bearing in mind the Christmas period, etc. Does it become effective immediately, or would there be a call-in period on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. I've been told that it will be effective immediate, unless the council's already made some other arrangements, which I understand that there's nothing been made, so it will become effective immediately. Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor? Oh.
Madam Mayor, am I able to, on a point of clarification?
Yes, on a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give assurances with regards to the performance and exhibition of wild animals. The policy that I've been working on with officers is not yet finished, and it is due to come in in the new year. And I think that answers Councillor Garrett's question. Thank you.
Councillor Thorne, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd firstly just like to say thank you as well to Councillor Rise for the conversations we've had over the past couple of days, and also your additions to this motion as a whole. I do hope that this is something that, as a council, we can unite behind and come together and agree under a common goal of supporting animals and wildlife within Surrey Heath. And I hope, especially given that we are coming into a time of year where naturally as communities we do try to come together, this can be something that can bring this council together nice and firmly for Christmas. Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's actually just a point of clarity. And I'm sure nobody would do, and this is certainly a motion that I would be supporting, and I'm surprised it's not already completely and utterly there for us. I thought from a point of order there is the opportunity for a call-in. So, for example, if three members of the council decided to call in this decision, do we not therefore have to wait for that call-in period to expire beforehand? It's just clarity, please. Thank you.
I am advised that there is no call-in on this, or any full council. That's my advice, the advice I've been given. Is there anybody else like to speak? No? Right. So, thank you. I'd like to now move to a vote on the substantive motion. So it's the amendment, there's now the substantive motion. So I would like a show of hands unless anyone indicates otherwise. The motion is carried, it's unanimous. Really will have to get some more glasses. Item 9, Governance Working Group. I'd like to invite Councillor Richard Wilson to introduce the report of the Governance Working Group and to move the recommendation therein. Councillor Wilson, would you like to introduce the item?
Thank you, Mayor. And I would like to thank the members of the Governance Working Group for their diligent bipartisan work on this recommendation, and the officers for supporting with crucial expert professional advice. The Working Group considered whether to recommend appointing an independent representative to the Audit Standards and Risk Committee, and if so, whether they should chair it. We decided not to do so for the time being for a number of reasons. The recent introduction of public question time at committees provides one method of challenging and informing committees. Other councils which have introduced independent representatives have encountered some difficulties as well as benefits, and we did not want to incur costs or use valuable officer time on these. Also, one of the objectives of appointing an independent representative was to plug skill gaps in areas like auditing, finance, quality assurance and risk management. However, the electorate have chosen a uniquely professionally qualified group of councillors, and they bring their experience, expertise and skills to the service of the council. I am referring to people like Councillors McIntyre, Noble, Lee, Betton, MacDonald, Fine and Cook and Kang, and many others. The people of this borough have clearly not had enough of experts. On the contrary, they have elected so many that it's not necessary to appoint an extra one. In 2016, the Urgent Action Protocol was used by the then Chief Executive, supported by the then Leader and the then Chair of the Performance and Finance Committee, to purchase the House of Fraser building for nearly £18 million. The building is now worth £3 million and is vacant. This was an unconstitutional breach of the urgent action process. Those committing it exceeded their authority by spending this amount and therefore making a key decision. There was no requirement for any legal officer to sign off on the urgent action process. This must never be allowed to happen again. The Governance Working Group recommends that the Council changes the urgent action procedure to require the 3 statutory officers to countersign decisions. This will ensure the process is being properly followed without slowing down urgent decision making. This change may seem like closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. Obviously, the current senior officers and leadership would never make the rash decisions that were made in the past. However, as councillors, by the end of our terms of office, we should aim to leave the Constitution in a better state than we found it, and perhaps avoid further catastrophic, reckless decisions in the far future. Please support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to second.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Do you have any comments, members? Is that agreed, members? Item 10. Members, this report covers 2 matters. 1, noting the revised membership of committees that have been agreed. 2, agreeing a new vice chairman for the licensing committee. Members, there has been a slight change to the Liberal Democrat substitutes for Employment Committee for those of you looking at the printed version of the report. The online version has been updated to show councillors Glert and Hode as the preferred substitutes for this committee. I propose that the revised membership of the committees and other bodies of the council is noted. Do you have a seconder? Do you have a seconder? That's wrong. You're seconded. Is that agreed, members? I would like to seek nominations for the Vice Chair of the Licensing Committee. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Ying Perrott. I believe that her life experiences will complement the local knowledge and deep expertise of Councillor White. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to second that nomination.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Are there any other nominations? With no other nominations, I declare Councillor Ying Perrott as the new Vice Chair for the Licensing Committee. That's the end of that one, isn't it? Yeah. Item 11, questions from councillors. I've been advised that 2 questions have been received from councillors. Councillor Murray Rowlands, would you like to read out your question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. There were 2,030 deaths and serious injuries in Surrey caused by road accidents between 2020 and 2022. A third of these were due to speeding. Can the portfolio holder confirm that he is prepared to campaign for a 20 mile per hour speed limits and further measures on residential roads where there is local support for such a move?
Thank you. I'm advised that the Sustainable Transport and Planning portfolio holder will respond to the question.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands, for your question. Although the determination of speed limits is a matter for Surrey County Council on our local roads, apart from those designated as national highways, obviously we will continue to champion the wishes of our local residents. So where there is a desire from residents to look at reducing speed limits or introducing other traffic calming measures, we of course will support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asprey. Councillor Rowlands, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wonder, as if the council at this stage has looked at areas where this speed limit might be introduced to a positive gain to the community.
Would the portfolio holder like to respond to the question?
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. As I said before, speed limits are a county council prerogative. Obviously, where residents contact us and look for support in lobbying to help the county council, we're prepared to do that. I'd like to point out that on the Mindenhurst development in Deep Cut, working together with the county council, most of that new development will now have 20 mile per hour speed limits on it. And I'm aware of a couple of other campaigns that people have spoken to me where we will do what we can to lobby county council to reduce the speed limit around schools, for example. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asprey, and thank you, Councillor Rowlands, for your question. Question 2, Councillor Richard Wilson, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Mayor. Fly tipping has a devastating effect on the environment in the borough, including in Bagshot and Windlesham. Data supplied by the Association of Liberal Democrat Councillors for the year ending in 2022 shows that the last administration had a poor record for issuing fixed penalty notices, FPNs, to fly tippers. SHBC ranked only 236 out of 309 local authorities in England for the number of FPNs issued. Recently, anecdotally, the performance seems to have improved markedly under the new administration. It appears that this is due to the long-term vacancies in the enforcement team now being filled and the new Lib Dem administration's focus on protecting the environment. Residents really appreciate their efforts in deterring fly tipping and punishing those responsible. What measures is the Council proposing to take in future to improve further and significantly increase the number of FPNs issued for this appalling offence? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I am advised that the Net Zero Environment and Wellbeing portfolio holder will respond to this question.
Thank you, Mayor. And firstly, I apologise for the length of the answer. There was a number of points I wanted to address. I agree that fly tipping has an incredibly and devastating, incredibly negative impact on the environment and the communities where waste is fly tipped. Also, there is a financial burden that this council has in clearing fly tipping, and I would encourage the public to dispose of their waste responsibly and correctly. It's also important to note that levels of fly tipping can often mirror wider economic conditions, such as during a cost of living crisis. However, data collected from Waste Data Flow indicates that there has been a year-on-year reduction in the rolling 12-month average total tonnage of fly tipping from 220 tonnes in March 2020 to a rolling annual total of 9 tonnes in September 2023. This is the lowest level of fly tipping within Surrey. Monthly averages of fly tips reported to our waste contractor, Amy, were calculated as a monthly average for a period of 7 months prior to and post-May 2023. The data shows that prior to May 23, the monthly average number of reported fly tips was 50, whereas the average figure from May to November 23 was 59.1. The number of fixed penalty notices served between May 23 to date is 6, 4 in the same period in 2022, and 2 in the same period for 2021. It is important to add that the number of fixed penalty notices for fly tipping offences is not directly linked to incidents of fly tipping. FPNs and other enforcement action, such as prosecution, is wholly reliant on having sufficient evidence to be able to identify the perpetrator. Our corporate enforcement team have invested in deployable CCTV cameras for the purpose of prevention and detection of environmental crimes such as fly tipping. This has generated substantial successes in reducing fly tipping in surveyed areas. This will continue, and we will continue to work with partners to tackle fly tipping and other environmental crimes. New guidelines have also been issued by central government regarding the FPN scheme we are able to use to fine. This is currently being reviewed, and I hope to bring a recommendation forward in the new year. Finally, I would like to encourage the public to help us tackle fly tipping by ensuring that they dispose of their waste responsibly at household waste recycling centres. If they are paying someone to remove waste on their behalf, that they are asking them to ensure that they are a registered waste carrier and to come forward with information where they witness fly tipping taking place. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Wilson, would you like to come to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the answer, Councillor Rise. It is good to hear that the number of FPNs issued has risen so much under the new administration. I hope that people take your advice and use recycling centres. However, Surrey County Council, who run them, make them difficult and sometimes expensive to use for small businesses and residents. Do you think Surrey County Council representatives should appear before this Council's External Partnerships Scrutiny Committee to explain how their recycling centres serve the people of the borough? Thank you.
Would the portfolio holder like to respond to the question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Wilson. I would absolutely welcome and encourage Surrey County Council to come before External Partnerships, and I'm sure the chair of that committee has listened and is probably excited to invite Surrey County Council to attend. Primarily, I think they should come to External Partnerships to enable the borough councillors to properly scrutinise their work, and especially with the removal of the local area committees from the Surrey County Council. I think that it cut a very clear and concise link between the county and the borough councillors and also the local people. It's a shame that that was cut by the county council. Personally, the county council can also feel very remote, so I would definitely encourage the county council to be more proactive and encourage them to spend more time in the boroughs. So yes, I would welcome them to come to External Partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise, and thank you, Councillor Wilson, for your question. Leaders' question time. I would now like to invite members to ask questions of the leader, Sean MacDonald, on issues relating to the executive functions. Please be aware that the 20 minutes is allocated to leaders' question time, as usual, so everyone can have a chance. I will try to ensure all members have the opportunity to ask a first question before I invite you to ask a second question. So if you wish to ask more than one question, please prioritise a first question. Please also keep your introduction to your question as short as possible so we can hear as many questions as possible. Can I now have the first question from Member Councillor Wheeler, followed by Councillor Garrett, followed by Councillor Quinn, and then Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, this evening's meeting didn't start its projection until after the Mayor's announcements. So my question is very to the point and directly related to this meeting, and I wondered whether the leader would permit the Mayor to read out her Mayor's announcements again, given that the residents unfortunately will not have got to hear them. Thank you.
Transmission of the Facebook.
Councillor MacDonald, would you like to respond?
Could I get a clarification whether that is an executive function from, I guess, the Deputy Monitoring Officer?
Is that the issue is not relating to an executive function.
I understand the glitch is not related to an executive function, so I'm sorry.
May I just have a point of clarification, please? So IT and communication is not an executive function, is that correct?
The procedure for the full council is not an executive function, I am told. So the next question for the leader is Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. Before I ask my question, I would just like to make a comment about the glitch, which seems to be an ongoing glitch. So it might not be a function of the council, but I think it needs to be de-glitched, because it's not the first time we've had a meeting where the beginning of that meeting has not gone out. That wasn't my question. My question was to the leader. As you may have seen in local press, it's Christmas. And it might surprise you to say I'm not going to ask you anything other than for you to wish on behalf of us, the council, all the officers and the executive and every member of this chamber a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Councillor Quinn. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Garrett, and thank you for your very colourful shirt today, which has got everybody in the right mood. So I think we all appreciate that. Yeah, I very much welcome the opportunity to wish everybody a peaceful Christmas and a healthy New Year. I think it's very important that we celebrate these festivals, whether they be people be of a Christian faith, of no faith. We celebrate other faiths festivals through the year as well. So thank you very much for your question. And I wish yourself and your family as well, both of those.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. Speaking about Christmas, I saw what I thought was a very apt meme posted by someone living in Surrey Heath earlier today that said that Royal Mail have said today is the last day to guarantee if you post a letter that it will be delivered by Easter, let alone Christmas. Now, I've heard that Mole Valley District Council are offering Royal Mail help to recruit staff, including advertising vacancies. And I note that my fellow councillor, Councillor Rowlands, asked a question at the last full council meeting about Royal Mail delays. And I think the leader said at the time that it'd be a good idea to invite Royal Mail to external partnerships to explain some of the problems they're having locally. So can I just ask him whether he thinks Surrey Heath should advertise some Royal Mail vacancies and whether Royal Mail are indeed going to come to external partnerships? Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Quinn, for your humorous question. Again, we all appreciate a good laugh. Yeah, I think the service, as we're all aware, from Royal Mail has been poor. I can't remember the exact number of letters the Chief Executive has written to them, but it's an ongoing issue. We'll certainly be happy to relook at it and see what we can do. And I know my friend Councillor Lee will be happy to give them the Thames water treatment should they be brave enough to turn up. I think it's important that people's good wishes, as Councillor Garrett was alluding to earlier, do get through to nearest and dearest. I don't really think it's the job of the council to advertise roles for Royal Mail. What I do think it is the job of the council to do is to make sure that we invest our time in ensuring that we have affordable houses for key workers such as Royal Mail workers to have places, good homes to live in. Thanks for your question.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 3rd of October, National Highways closed and then later demolished the footbridge over the M3 linking Bagshot and Lightwater. I would like to thank the leader and the Chief Executive for bringing together all the interested parties. That was National Highways, Surrey County Council and all of the ward councillors from both parties. This enabled us to understand the situation and lobby effectively on behalf of our residents. It led to a reduction of 6 months in the planned timetable to construct the replacement bridge. Can I congratulate the leader and ask if this is an example of the Council's new emphasis on campaigning for residents, even if it involves issues outside its remit? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Bowens.
Madam Mayor. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for your question. I mean, I think the nuts and bolts of this are that families are being blighted by this bridge having been demolished, yeah? And it's mainly the population in Bagshot. It affects the odd bike warrior like me that wants to go across to Swinley Forest. But I think the main effect is on the families of Bagshot, and that's nothing to be celebrated at all. The fact that we do have, or we do seem to have a commitment that it will be 6 months early is great, but we must all keep the pressure on and work across this chamber to try and make that even shorter, so that they are parallel processing all of those project steps to shorten the timeline for the bridge to be replaced. And hopefully, as they've suggested, it will be a better bridge. So yes, I very much appreciate all the efforts of everybody across this chamber and beyond it to keep the pressure on National Highways to get that done. In terms of the role of this council for campaigning for residents, yes, it is a good example, and we're prepared to do more of that. Obviously, Thames Water is one. Councillor Rowlands has raised the issue, and Councillor Quinn as well, has raised the issue of Royal Mail. We'd be happy to pick that one up and see what can be done. And where our influence is positive, then we will apply it when we think it's in the interest of the residents. We won't bend the knee to any external party. We will challenge them when it's in the best interest of the council. Hence why we have prioritised the replacement of Frimley Park Hospital, the relocation, and will be active in ensuring that stays within the borough in the interests of all the residents. But yes, very well open to new topics that from across the chamber that we should be working on behalf of residents. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Rowlands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. St Michael's Ward probably contributes more than the average towards the council's rateable value because it has a considerable amount of business rates which are collected. However, it does not have any public building in which it's possible to have meetings of any kind. There is no public building available. Can I ask the leader what steps might be taken to ensure that we might work with other bodies to ensure that there is some form of public meeting place based in St Michael's?
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. You're right to highlight how much business rates are generated in your ward, and it's a shame that central government takes so much of it out of the borough and leave us with 8.1%, something that I continue to highlight to our absentee MP. I was not aware of there being no public meeting buildings in St Michael's. I think there are some adjacent, but it's certainly something we can look into. I think, as you're aware, the state of our finances is not what we'd all like it to be in terms of the general squeeze across all the public sector. But yes, we should be trying to facilitate groups that you wish to assemble, and we'll follow up after this meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Wheeler.
Would the leader support a review of our IT and communication systems and methods with residents via our YouTube channel to reassure residents that quiet periods within the transmission are not being politically influenced to the detriment of transparency and democracy? Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I'm happy to commit to such a review. There is no indication of the last piece of your statement, and given that other people are apt to vent their concerns about people's questions, I find that a little bit below the belt. But we will get that looked into in terms of the ICT. I'm sure the officers, both here and the support staff, are doing their very best to make sure that the public have full access to our proceedings. And I assure you there was no intent to to cause an omission when the Mayor was speaking. But I would like to thank my children for also pointing it out, although I saw it too late. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Any further questions for the leader? No? Well, before I close the meeting, in reference to Councillor Wheeler's comment, I will read a couple of my announcements because I consider that the award that was awarded, the King's Award that was won or awarded to Age Concerned Surrey Heath on behalf of the borough is a magnificent achievement. And they have this for life. And I think that the Age Concern has done a wonderful job, and apparently they've been going for 70 years. So to ensure that all members in the borough, all people in the borough has heard it, that Age Concern Surrey Heath have achieved this prestigious award, and it's much well preserved. So well done to them. The other one was the Collingwood School and their Duke of Edinburgh Awards. They have gone both bronze, silver and gold. Unfortunately, there weren't many gold recipients because they were all away at university, apart from one young lady who has decided to go around the world and backpack, and she is at the moment in Australia. But we did have a very proud mother there. And so congratulations not only to Collingwood, who have done so much for the Duke of Edinburgh Award, but to Tomlin Scopes and Gordon School. And I've also thanked all the parents. And there is the young lad at the Philip Southcote School, which involves Tomlin Scope, who did so very well. And also thank you to all the wonderful charities and all the 10-year, 25-year, 50-year anniversaries that I've been to. So that was a great achievement for a lot. And also to say that due to circumstances, the Mayor's Civic Service will not take place in Chobham as suggested on the 20th of January, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future. But just to make the borough aware that that service will not be taking place. So that concludes the business of the meeting, and I would like to thank everyone for attending, but for just one other thing, to thank the staff, the officers, for all the work they do, thank them for everything and all the help they give us, and wish everybody a very happy Christmas. Thank you.